And I understand you're going to be going over to Brussels out of that UN conference, right?
That's right. I'm going over there to speak to the EU and a bunch of American dignitaries. They have this conference. Good thing. Every 2 or 4 years, communications people get together and they talk about what's happening in their countries, exchange ideas. And
couldn't come at a more propitious time.
Well, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think I may have been invited because I couldn't get many Americans who even want to go to Belgium now.
maybe. Welcome. Welcome very much to Conversation. It's a pleasure, great pleasure. Welcome to the program. The founding president and CEO of Cable News Network, and he also is a man who's been involved in communications for a very long, distinguished, 30-year career, and he is also the author of a book recently penned that is called Me and Ted Against the World, which deals with, I guess, that period of founding of CNN and so forth, and that being Reese Schonfeld. Reese, welcome very, very much to Conversations.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to have an hour in a non-commercial atmosphere.
Absolutely, isn't it great? We don't have to cut for ads.
Nobody's saying break, 10 seconds.
This is a computer break. We have to go. None of that. Yeah. But we got a lot we can talk about because we've both been sort of involved, me within public access and you within the real industry, the whole core of the industry. But I wonder, maybe if you could share with us and the viewers, maybe you could share a little bit of your own background, where you're born and raised, that sort of thing. And then we can talk about the historical development of media and then maybe save a good deal of time to talk about the current and future situation. But could you share a little of your background, please?
Yeah. Well, I was born right across the river over in Newark, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. When that was still a city that people lived in, were proud of, and went to college and went up to Dartmouth. Got a couple of degrees from Columbia.
What'd you take the degrees in, if I may ask?
I got a master's in political theory at Columbia and LLB.
Oh, you got your law degree.
Yeah, and in between the two of them, I was looking for a summer job. I got a summer job with a company called United Press Movietone News. You can't be older than the newsreels, fellas. And I liked that job, and they liked me, which was more important. And they were willing to give me a schedule so I could work my way through law school. And
good deal. So you got into the media, in a sense.
Yeah,
Did you ever know of a fellow named Norman Alley?
Yeah,
the
sure.
newsreel guy?
Yeah, sure.
Last week we had, it was just aired, it was Gordon Parks.
Yeah.
He said that when he, because he's a great photographer, he came up out of hard scrabble, out of the Midwest and everything, but he said the thing that inspired him to get into photography and everything was the newsreel that Norman Alley had shot of the bombing of an American ship in China by the Japanese in 1938, and that's what inspired him to get into photography. It was the newsreel that did it.
Yeah. Sure. That's interesting because we were exclusive, and I wasn't even old enough to be working there then. But we were exclusive with that famous shot of the baby sitting in Nanking, surrounded the Chinese baby. That was a Movietone newsreel shot, and of course in those days it used to be all right to find a little baby and pick him up and put him in the puddle and make sure you got the shot.
Yeah, and scare him to get him crying.
Right, get him crying too.
Yeah, well, I think some of that's still going on, do you think?
Too much of it is still going on.
Now it's digitally enhanced, the wag the dog.
Digitally only, you mean by that? That's enhanced.
But you were involved in that. Were you involved in a creative way, or learning the business, or what?
In 1956, which is when I started with them, I was just a copy boy, which is that was fun, and then after a while you become a writer and you go out on stories and you learn how to edit, help people. These are union shops. You never touch film, but you learn how to edit and you learn what makes a story.
The Steenbeck.
The Steenbeck was way later. We had the first Steenbeck in America.
Really?
Yeah, and that was back in the early 60s. I know. We brought it, my wife's a great editor.
Yes,
she was the first one to ever use it. And we brought it down to a political convention in Miami, and that means either, I guess, 72 or 76.
Really,
and she had set it up, and all the networks around, none of them had ever seen it before. She was a great editor, and she worked very fast. And once she comes into work, and now over the door is pasted, "Pat the Queen and her magic machine."
Well, good for Pat. That's great.
Good for the Steenbeck. It really was that good.
Yeah, it was a good thing.
Before that, it was the Moviola.
Yeah,
and then there was the Bulldog. I'm not going to rock in history.
The kinescope they used to have back in order to do it in the old days. I once did a program with Peter Goldmark the Senior. He had invented videotape, as I understand.
That's correct.
It really brought in a whole new era. Yeah, a lot of exciting development. But it's coming out of photography and coming out of film and so forth.
Yeah, well,
and there's a sort of sister relationship between film and television that maybe we can get to talk about.
Yeah, well,
but you were involved early on, working your way through school, learning the law. You,
Yep.
you wanted to become a lawyer.
Yep.
Did you think of doing that? Did you ever think of going that way?
Well, in 1960, when I got
Yeah.
out of law school, I had a choice of taking my bar exam
Yeah.
or going to cover the political conventions, Kennedy and Nixon, and it was no choice
More
at all.
fun, Kennedy and Nixon, yeah.
I never looked back.
Yeah, I see. Really, that's what got you there. Yeah, and then you okay, and so after that Movietone, and didn't you help start a thing called the Independent News Association or something that had to do with satellite delivered programming or something? Or is that later on?
No, that was later.
Yeah.
It goes back a long way.
Yeah.
What we were doing at United Press was we were serving stations with film, and we'd have to put little rolls and little green boxes and ship them air express.
Yeah.
And some of them would get it the same day, and most of them would get it the next day.
Right.
And then they completed the cabling of America,
Yeah.
so you could send the film. One push of your button, and the pictures were in California, in Chicago, everywhere.
With quality.
Oh yeah, excellent,
Yeah.
perfect quality.
Yeah,
This
right.
These were network shows,
Yeah.
and the networks had this. But this was very, very expensive, and nobody could afford it except the three networks.
Yeah, the big
and
ones.
so all the little stations, they were big stations, the independents, the stations that are now Metro Media, Fox network stations, they didn't have that.
Yeah.
The stations that Chicago Tribune owned here in New York, 5, 11, 9, 13 was a commercial station. They didn't have
They didn't
network.
have because it was too costly.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
I see.
they had to buy their news from somebody else. And we stayed in the business selling news to them and selling news to everybody in Europe. And we stayed in business all the way until 1972, 73.
Okay, and you're doing that. You're selling news clips. You're selling
clips.
audio visual. You're selling video. Yeah, visual.
Visual material.
Visual material. I can remember, if I may, I don't want to, but I remember doing a program way the heck back, 74 or something, with Gerald Levin, who was to become the chairman or CEO, and it was a fellow named Arnold there or something, but they had just had Telstar. And they had just had the linking. I don't want to get ahead of the story here. They had the thing where they could, instead of taping these big 2-inch high-beam television movies to the various head ends, they could relate by the satellite. And they were happy as kids with a new toy that they could just put it up on the satellite. And it was all over the continent. And that's part of an ongoing story of a technological development that I guess you followed very carefully. All the technological developments of getting pictures and sound around and about the planet. Huh?
Jerry Levin signed the first contract to do that in September 1975.
I didn't.
And I signed the second contract in November of 75.
Mazel tov! Congratulations!
To send news all over America. That was the independent television news. The way we linked our stations was by satellite. And they needed those enormous 10-meter dishes in those days.
Yeah.
And yet they were so interested in news. Some of those stations bought them, and it made it possible to do. If you read the book, it's the history step by step.
Yeah.
And we fought AT&T because it was AT&T's rates that were so high for cable, and AT&T used to charge the networks about less than 30% of what we would have to pay for buying 1 hour, because the network's about 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it was the satellite that ended the network monopoly.
Was that strictly market driven? Did that make sense in market terms because they're a big dealer? You can give them a better price. You get, or was there a bias? Do you think, or was there a bias in that, or does the market serve? I mean, if they say, well, we're going to do it at a better rate for somebody who's got a big contract, people do that all the time in the business world, don't they? Or was it over the top? Or?
I think it was. I know it was somewhat over the top, maybe very over the top.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Well, when they built the networks, they had to have customers. When they built them, by say networks, I don't mean they're the ABC, CBS. I mean the telephone network, and the telephone network, coaxial cable, is a lot of capacity. And when they got a contract from a network that said we'll buy all that capacity, that was bankable. That showed everybody there was money.
Sure.
So that was good for them. But then when the other fellas came through, the occasionals like Hughes Sports Network, if you remember that.
Yes, absolutely.
And the old Spanish television stations, Telemundo and Univision, those stations.
Telemundo,
they couldn't afford that. And so we all got together and we were suing AT&T, and the FCC was listening, and AT&T agreed to lower its rates a little bit. And then all all of a sudden AT&T got competition for their phone line.
Yeah, Mr. MCI.
MCI.
And what was his name?
But the guys who were particular, TCI out in the West, McGowan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I did a thing with him, and he was thinking of doing that down in Washington. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Greenberg, Judge Greenberg was the one who broke up AT&T.
I guess he did finally. Yeah, but this was way.
Yeah.
What happened was the company that's now TCI and a company called Milwaukee Journal Paper and a company down in Texas, Southern Communications, they just lopped off the end of the AT&T lines. And they said, okay, TCI said, we're going to take Portland to Seattle. And the other company said, we're going to take Milwaukee to Minnesota. TCI and the Southern company said, we're going to take Dallas to you, and we're going to provide. But they needed to get network contracts. So they went to the networks and they offered them contracts for less money.
I see.
And then they were bankable and they could build their networks.
I see that.
And that scared the hell out of AT&T.
Yeah.
But it was very successful for them. And then when TCI announced it was going to build another line from, say, Omaha to Salt Lake City, all of a sudden AT&T made this magic discovery. They'd been charging the networks too much money.
Imagine that. An epiphany.
Yeah, they lowered their prices. And there's a wonderful story that I'd like to tell. It's a tribute to a man named Barnathon, Julie Barnathon, who worked for ABC, a marvelous man, the smartest man at ABC.
Really? That's saying
Leonard Goldenson knew that, respected it. He'd come in as a research guy when their technical stuff was falling apart. He took over their technology. But when TCI needed people to support that line from Omaha to Utah.
Was that Malone?
That was just before Malone came in. Malone came in just after that, but he did come in. But one of the networks had signed a deal to do that. One of them hadn't, and Julie hadn't. But Julie had said, I'll do it. When they all had said they'd do it, but only one had put it on paper. When the new rate from AT&T came out, the network that hadn't signed it, the other one said, oh, gee, we owe it to the stockholders. We're going to have to abandon you. Julie said, I gave you my word, and we will do this. And it was so bad for TCI in those days, and people don't remember this. They were financing themselves week to week on the Mars plan. Literally, this is TCI.
Credit cards,
and Jules Barnathon said, we will stick by our word, and it saved that whole TCI company. And years later, when ESPN was up for sale, Getty's wanted to sell it, and ABC wanted to buy it, John Malone, who was then at TCI, John said, you know, that's a wonderful franchise. Why should we let them buy it? Let us buy it. And he went, he meant all the cable companies buy it for themselves. And he went to his boss, the man who owned it, Magnus, who owned the network, and he mentioned this to him, and Magnus said, Julie kept his word. Let ABC have ESPN.
All right.
And to that day, that's why ABC owns that network.
I'll be darned. That's really an interesting story. And it's also illustrative of the fact that deals made like that at a certain level really do carry weight in the long run with some of the big players. They live up to that. Sometimes people think it's a dog-eat-dog kind of bottom line only kind of thing. But there are deals that have the strength of time that reside in the minds and decision making of the real players, no?
But it's not the deals. It's the people.
The people,
They're
right.
people.
Integrity.
There are people still in some parts of the business that have integrity. That's why I tell the story.
Folks,
that's why I tell the story, because it shows that keeping your word helps.
Yeah, it does. In the long run, young men and women just realize that's something that you
it's only worth $15 billion to ABC.
Right
now.
So you were involved in, and then when you were involved in that, and then when did you link up, or how did you come to link up and be involved at the early formation of CNN, or is that getting ahead of something we might deal with?
We were talking about ITNA. When I did that satellite network, I gathered the news and we sent it out first for a half hour to about 9 stations, and then for an hour, and first 5 days a week, and then 7 days a week, and gradually we grew to about 30 different stations all over the country, and we helped people start. And this is over 4 or 5 years.
And we're talking what years now?
Oh, 75 through 79, 4
Coming right up
years.
to
And
CNN.
and at that point, Ted never did news. I used to go down and try to convince Ted, for he had an independent station there, that he should do news. And
TBS. Huh?
TBS.
Yeah, 17, Channel 17, Atlanta. Yeah.
Right.
That was his first superstation.
Right.
Yeah.
It was I first met Ted
Yeah.
because I had been very early in understanding the satellite. And
You
what it
saw
was
that.
gonna be.
Well, you were right behind Jared Levin.
But before I was before him in seeing it.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay,
And
okay.
I went down to visit Atlanta because Scientific Atlanta was down there. And
That's right. That's right. Huge.
And they were huge in this business, and we were going to be a good customer.
Yeah.
And when I was picked up at the airport by Sid Topol, one of the great founders
That
of our
was
business.
he. He was the founder,
Yeah,
wasn't he? Yeah, I
he
did a
was
program
chairman.
with him way
He
the
was
heck
chairman,
back. Yeah.
sure. And
Yeah.
Sid, instead of taking me directly to his plant, he takes me over to meet Ted Turner.
Had you known him?
No.
You didn't know of him?
No. Well, I knew who his name was, but we all thought he was silly. He was this jerk who was running around
Mouth of
doing,
the South,
winning
Winning
cups,
American cups and things,
and that kind of thing. And,
Talking strange.
and if you're in the news business, making a fool of himself at the, but consciously he was playing the fool for the whole world, and.
He's great.
He takes me to see him, and I don't even know why. And says, what's all this about satellites? And I said, and he said, what's it going to cost me? And I said, I made the first deal for a satellite. Western Union was the company I was dealing with, and they asked me what they could charge. They desperately needed customers, and I said, well, I got $1 million a year in my budget. And he said, okay, it'll be $90,000 a month. Can you live with that? And
Quick calculation. Yeah.
And so when Ted asks me what it's going to cost, I tell him it's going to cost about $1 million a year. The whole country, $1 million a year. I can reach everywhere for $1 million a year. And I said, absolutely. And he says, no, that's all I want to know. Thank you very much.
You got a deal.
I'm not selling anything. He doesn't.
I got a deal.
He doesn't even buy us lunch.
Yeah, right. That's funny. And that was that early. That was the first meet. That was the first
meeting with him. Yeah, and that was like
the great mouth of the
73,
South.
74. I guess that was 74. Yeah.
Great figure, bigger than life,
Oh,
bigger
yeah.
than life. I love him. Yeah.
Always was. I mean, it's after we started ITNA, which was after this, like 75, we were still trying to get him. The ITNA was owned. That was it was like the AP, owned by the members, a news co-op that I ran for him. And they would all the guys would be there at the big cable meetings, and there'd be Ted, and he'd be sitting around, and he'd had a drink or two, and this was a real act. They made me go through it every time. He'd be there with blonde, maybe two blondes, and I'd go up to Ted, and I'd say, Ted, when are you going to do news? We need you in Atlanta. And Ted would say, I hate news. I'll never do news. I got more programming down in my library that I could run 100 years on.
I got the Braves. Do you have the Braves?
I got the Braves.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's right. I got that was all part of it.
Yeah.
And then when he called, it was after we made ITNA work, and he decided, he called and said, can you? It was Jerry Levin's idea originally.
It was. The CNN one?
Yeah, CNN
it was. Really? Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
He called me when I was running ITNA. He sent a guy over named Bob Weisberg, and we had a whole series of meetings. And I went to
78, 79?
77, 78, I guess.
Oh, really early. Yeah.
And he's. And I go to my board, which is all broadcasters.
Yes.
And I say, look, this will be a great customer. Maybe we can get a piece of the company. And they say they are the enemy.
Yeah. There was. Those lines were drawn.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I will not let the enemy kill me with my own news material.
Vincent Wazalewski, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the lines were really drawn there between cable, which was new technology coming. And when I did a program, as I mentioned to you before, 79 to 80 with Turner, and he said, cable is just it. They're just going to have to lead, follow, or get out of the way because cable's a better technology. And there was a clash between the cable that was coming and the broadcasters that had an interest in what had been, no?
Oh, yeah.
It's a standard dynamic that in building the media world.
You got a monopoly. You don't want to share that with anybody. I mean,
Not usually
guys,
they don't, do they? No, yeah.
Never.
Never have they in the history of the world.
The smart ones get in on it.
All right,
but there are a lot of people who'd rather fight it than get in on it. And that was the way my board felt. They just said, no way. And then, Jerry wouldn't do it unless ITNA could have provided the stuff for him.
Yeah, right.
And so a little bit after that, I got a call from Ted. And Ted says, can it be done? Will you do it?
And that's coming off that original meeting with Sid Topol.
Sure. Yeah, but more coming off what I did afterwards. But when I built ITNA, those 3 or 4 years where we proved that an independent network could exist without network help and bring in enough news to be respectable.
I want to stay within the bounds of absolute reason and rationality and truth and everything like that, but it sounds to me, Reese Schonfeld, like the idea of doing an all-news channel like that has become so important that the seminal feature and the seminal person in getting that idea and putting it forth was Reese Schonfeld. You had the idea first?
No.
You had the idea? You were thinking?
Jerry gave me the idea.
He gave you, didn't have an inkling, not even a dream?
I didn't know enough about cable to understand that it was ready for it.
Okay, yeah.
And I asked Ted if cable was ready for it.
Founding fathers you guys were, though, yeah.
I asked Ted if cable was ready. He said, no, it isn't ready. But if it was ready, somebody else would do it.
Yeah, you're right.
You're a small guy, you got to get in before it's
with
ready.
The new idea,
Absolutely.
haven't you? Yeah. But wasn't it all movies driven? It was HBO. It was all movies that were going to drive the whole cable thing and everything like that. Even though that Sloan Commission report where they said cable is the medium of abundance and there's new possibilities, gave all kinds of possibilities which have come to be. But that was a major report in terms of the technological realities that were emerging with the cable, I guess, right?
That's right. And movies were the most important.
Yeah.
That was at the first meeting that I had with Ted. I said, why, Ted? You always said you didn't want to do news. Why do it? He said, well, I don't really want to do news, but there are only 4 things that television does really well.
What, sports?
There's sports,
movies,
and ESPN's got that.
Bob Rosencrantz was ESPN?
No. Bob Rosencrantz was USA. ESPN was originally, I'm trying to think of a guy up in Hartford, Connecticut.
Wasn't it Rosencrantz?
No.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay, but
Okay.
He said, sports, ESPN's got that. Movies, HBO's got that. Television, plays, serials, the networks have that. All that stuff for us is news. So let's do news.
Let's do news because that's all there is.
And he got there and he got that.
And he got it up and going. And then he called you and had you come on down.
Yeah, well, before he got it up and going.
Before he got it going. You helped him get it up and going.
He called me in December, September, I still remember, December '78, and we sat down there, and we were talking about it, and we were going to do it, and I still remember he asked me, I said, do you believe in stars? I said, absolutely. He said, well, who's a big star that we could get in for us? I said, well, I tried to get Dan Rather. I happen to know that Rather was somewhat unhappy at CBS at the time. He'd been doing 2 shows. He lost one of the shows. His salary had been cut in half.
So you wanted to get one of the network stars. If you could, you would have.
Absolutely.
That's interesting,
Ted said, who's Dan Rather? And I told him who Dan Rather was. And he said, what? Before. And he said, what do you think it'll cost us? And I said, I think it'll cost us about $1 million a year. And he said, $1 million a year to get a guy to read the news? Said, well, hell, I just offered Pete Rose $1 million a year to play baseball, and he only works half a year.
Great story. Great, yeah. So he had to be brought around to the importance of the star power.
No, he believed in stars.
Yeah.
He just didn't believe in the $1 million.
I see, $1 million. But did he believe in he believed in the star power as far as news or anything else?
Anything else.
Yeah, sports or movies or whatever. That's an important question, whether or not it is the stars that drive the thing or not. I guess it is.
You always want to get one name.
Yeah.
When we started CNN, the best name we could get was Dan Shore.
Yeah, Dan's great.
Dan Shore, he had a lot of respectability and all, but not the name of
the pizzazz or the yank.
Yeah,
and that carries a lot. That's star power. It's like a that kind of thing. So you were down there, and then it got started. Were you involved in the business end of it? Or were you involved in the? You were involved in the whole ball of wax. Must have been exciting as all get out, huh?
That's most exciting time you'll ever have. Anyone can have in his life.
And to have Ted Turner
to build a whole. And he left
him off over your shoulder. That must have been. It must have been a laugh a day, or at least a dozen laughs a day.
He left me alone.
Oh, he did.
Yeah. We made a deal. I would control programming, format, and personnel, and I controlled all the money. I built the studio. He had an architect who I thought, oh, gee, another Ted guy, a guy named Bunky Helfrich, who doesn't get the credit he deserves. Bunky had been the navigator on Ted's ships, and I thought he didn't know anything about architecture. He was good.
And they're courageous or something. With a ship that he sailed in the American Cup, But he knew what he was doing, Bunky.
Oh, yeah. We flew over. I took him up to Canada, to Vancouver, to show him a studio that I wanted, that was a step towards what we were doing.
Yeah.
And he came back, and he designed the basic set that's seen now all over America for in those open newsroom things.
Yes,
and we did that. And so we built it. We built the studio.
Were you creating new space there in terms of set design?
Yes.
And was it things that the technology was making possible that hadn't been possible?
Absolutely.
Was it a creative new thing or something? Or it must have been, yeah, from the ground up, literally, you were designing the thing, yeah.
You know, Orson Welles once said that when he went to Hollywood, he really didn't invent anything. All he did was take the things that the movies knew about but didn't bother to do, and he used them.
Could you apply that, what the networks had done as far as this new cable thing that was coming? Was that a dynamic that you were building on it, you know? Marshall McLuhan was talking about the media and the effects of the media and everything, but you were building one on the other and that sort of thing. There's a linking between them. Well, and then we're going to, at some point in this hour, we're going to want to get up to the current thing with the internet developing and that sort of thing too, you know. But these things build one upon the other. And he used to say, one doesn't displace it. Everybody thinks the new medium is going to displace the old, but they usually don't. It becomes the content of the new. And there's a dynamic there that has to be understood, not only in terms of artistic or intellectually, but in business terms, I guess, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's critical from a business point of view.
Yeah.
A lot of the big companies can't adopt the new technology because they have so much money tied up in the old that they can't write it off and buy the new.
That's right. They got to amortize the old investments. And that's a thing that somebody has to keep pretty light on your feet, and you got to be kind of entrepreneurial in order to be able to do that, right?
Well, that's why it's wonderful to start new and start fresh.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you don't make any mistakes, you can keep you buy all the... Well, one more old CNN story. When I went down there, there's a guy, Gene Wright, who was a wonderful engineer, but he was traditional at this time. He became revolutionary after once we got him trained. But he said, aren't you going to want a film chain? Two film chains, $500,000 each. I said, no, I don't want any film chains.
But you had to have a film chain to have film, didn't?
Yeah. Well, I said, we're going to be all tape. And he said, oh, but aren't you going to get some film in? And he said, yeah. So what are you going to do with the film that comes in? I said, Gene, do you have any film chains for Channel 17? He said, yeah. I said, well, take it over to you and you can put it on tape and we'll run it. And it saved us $1 million.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it clearly said we're going to be new and we're going to do things on tape and the way it has to be done. It was a great moment because all sorts of things were happening. Electronic graphics were just developing. We changed art departments.
That's right.
We had the first of those. We designed the first, and it still is one of the basic tools of every news company. It's called BASIC, and it was the computer system that runs newsrooms all over the world.
Those are those computer breaks they got coming up.
Well, in the newsroom, computer newsrooms. But that was until about 1992, 1993, absolute monopoly. Then ABC introduced a competitor, but that was all done for us. It was called Basis. We found a couple of guys on the floor in San Francisco at an RTNDA convention who designed a computerized radio room. We said, okay. We brought them out, and the whole company was founded. It was, you know, as you say, it's a moment that comes once or twice in a lifetime.
Right. This is a lifetime. This is a time to be coming into, I mean, now we haven't even gotten to, and we want to get to the fact that we're now going through, the whole world is going through this whole transference to digital. So all kinds of digital, Avid, and all these kind of editing techniques, nonlinear, all this kind of thing is coming. But I mean, so this isn't, and it's all coming. When I was a kid, I was abroad in Michigan. We used to have a house. We lived in a house, and at the house they had a thing called an attic. I don't know if they still have attics. I mean, in New York, it's all apartments. You had an attic, and that's a place where you put stuff, you know, you stuff. And on a Saturday afternoon, you can go up in the attic. It was great with the rain falling on the roof, and there's all kinds of junk up there. And we had a record. We had a little record, and it said, we could play it, and it said, this is a demonstration record of the new Columbia talking machine. It was from the turn of the century or something. But the point being is that this is all telescoped within your and my, and well, my dad, or our lifetime. The technology is absolutely staggering what's going on. And now we're coming into this genome thing. We're coming into nanotechnology, the chip, this kind of thing. It's an incredibly challenging and interesting time in terms of to live, and then to try to adapt in terms of human institutions, isn't it?
Oh, well.
I mean, unfathomably fast everything's moving now.
Something happened, I don't know, right about 1980, which sped up the whole process beyond belief. It was, you know...
CNN.
Well, oh no, that made CNN possible.
Yeah,
CNN
right.
did not make it possible, but no, it was just. I really can't explain. I can remember in 1982, 83, I discovered there was such a thing as a personal computer.
Yes.
That it no longer cost $200,000 for a computer. It was.
It is a little Osborne. Remember an Osborne? You could carry it around. That was the thing. Yeah. But did you take to it early?
No, I used it. I was running a business. I used it for the business.
Spreadsheet or something.
But you know, spreadsheet, retail things, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But never. I still don't really know how to use a computer personally.
Tell me about it. I know it's really hard to keep up with. And then the 10-year-old kid comes and he can make it work, and they can just do it like crazy. And it's having tremendous implications in terms of, well, the evolution of the whole human scenario. It's coming so quickly now, that kind of thing. And it's gone so quickly. I had a friend who worked at IBM. They had a computer the size of this room, which is now down to a chip that's going to be able to go through your bloodstream. In terms of information manipulation and everything like that. It's really something. But I don't want to get too far afield. That's philosophical. There's some really important things going on in terms of the human condition. We've reached a point where the technological capability we possess collectively as a human society, where Joshua Lederberg and others will tell us that if they were unleashed weapons, that they could wipe out the entire human species. That's a staggering thing to be living through existentially, that we've come to that. We couldn't do it in the Second World War. We crossed some existentially relevant line in terms of our capability. This is a really crucial time in terms of our 200,000-year odyssey of evolution of the human species. I guess what I'm getting at. It's a really important time, particularly if you're going to try and cover that with some intellectual integrity in the news sense, is what you've been trying to do. And do you think the news business has an obligation to try and cover those larger issues, those philosophical issues, or just who, what, when, where, and how is the main subject of a news organization and so forth? To go into analysis and so forth, does that play out? Is it important? Where does it fit in?
Well, I'm not sure that analysis is as important as the news.
Yeah, okay.
But the subject that you're talking about is an absolute necessity for news, and it's hardly covered at all.
Yeah.
I woke up sometime right after, I guess, or during, just about the beginning of the Iraq War, with a sense of dread. And dread reflected what you've just said, that suddenly we could all kill, destroy each other, and that the U.S. had taken on the role of saying there are some people with who cannot be trusted to handle this. Evil people, and you know, so and I wear the pin. I support the war, and I just hope that the U.S. will continue along that road. It's a hard world. We live in a world where millions and millions of people we now know believe that they will go to heaven and have 70 virgins waiting for them, and they can afford to destroy the world. You remember Pascal's wager? Always bet on God. If you win, you win everything, and if you lose nothing.
Oh no, I hadn't known that. That's good. I like that. Can I use it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, that's not. It's public domain.
But now I don't think you can bet on God. You know, that was how I woke up with that feeling, because if you win, you win everything. But if you lose this world. And
well, we can't apparently, from what I understand. Joshua Lederberg perhaps is our leading person who can get some sort of project. Or we had Carl Sagan a while back talking about nuclear winter and that kind of thing. But apparently we can't destroy life.
Perhaps
we can't destroy it. There are life forms in the bottom of the smokers of the deep oceans that are beyond photosynthesis, and evolution would pick up again. But this is the only place we know as of yet, Reese Schonfeld, where their life has actually formed. There are probability says it's probably elsewhere in the universe, but that's a pretty precious liaison. But we can't destroy life.
Well,
if we keep going, we might be able to blow the whole planet up. You
know
what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
We haven't gotten to that point.
That was where I was going to go.
We can't destroy the human species,
we can destroy,
which is a big change. We couldn't do it even in the Second World War.
The animal species, we can destroy.
A lot of the top end,
But we can also, if we go much further, do just what you said, blow the whole planet up.
Well, if we
go much further,
give us a little more time, we can develop that. If we don't develop some sort of a new ethic or some sort of a new understanding that makes things be able to, you know, Bucky Fuller once wrote a book called Utopia or Oblivion. You know, that we may be at a time of some sort of liberation or some sort of a capability that makes us be able to transcend the iron-clawed laws of the way human. But James Joyce once had Daedalus say, history is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to awaken. We may be awakening. You know what I'm saying? At a time of real qualitative transformation in terms of the evolution of events in this part of universe. You know?
Yeah, well,
I don't know. It's a strange time.
I am truly and honestly scared. I watched all the. I'm not sure. I'm
not
Joshua
either.
Leverberg knows whether or not we have the capability to destroy the whole world. Because if we do, you know, if it is somewhere in the bowels of the Pentagon that there is that, no one is going to tell us about it, and no one should. If we have secret weapons, we keep them secret. But what scares me is the confluence of this technology with the destructive technology, with the rise of people who actually believe with certainty that there is another better world, so that they may feel no compunction to blow up this one in order to get to that better world. And that was the sense of dread. That was what made me feel the dread that I feel to this day.
So what are we to do about it, do you think? I mean, you know, how do we approach this existential challenge, humanity? Because it's one that is posed to the whole of the world, that our success, we've reached a point of such success that it brings us to this dilemma. What do you think?
Well,
and where does it fit in terms of the important thing, the journalistic thing of reporting, Walter Winchell used to say all the ships at sea or something like that, ships at sea, here's the report from planet Earth, you know, that kind of a story. Where does it fit in terms of people who journalistically are trying to deal with these realities in a way that doesn't panic people or something, but might be able to I saw that Turner had put together a piece about 6 hours long about a month or so ago, about this big challenge. It was quite a good, well-put job. I think Bob Whistler had a hand in it.
Well, Ted has really believed in this.
Yes, Ted has really put the money on the line, helped the UN. And,
no, but more in this idea of atomic destruction, it's terrified him from, I don't know if you know the story well, but when we started CNN that day, he had the Navy band was there too, and the Navy band played "Nearer My God to Be," and Ted made a tape of that. And sometime after I left the network, he put that tape on the assignment desk and said, "As the world blows up, I want this to be the last thing that CNN puts up on the air."
That's such a poignant piece. "Nearer My God," that's like they played on the Titanic. It was a metaphor that we wanted. What day did it? What was the date of the launching? The
June 1st, 1980.
June 1, June Day, huh? 1980. That was a big monumental day. Well, there's so much we could talk about endlessly because there's so much interesting. But what do you say now? What are you up to these days? Okay, and what is your state of the view of things as we come into with the internet that's been introduced now? What's likely to be the dynamic of news gathering, education for whatever it's worth, and entertainment and so forth, of media broadly conceived, as we begin to look ahead from this date, and today is June 9th, 2003. Right. So as we begin to look ahead in terms of contemporary context, what role do you see with the internet? Is it going to have a major media distribution role? Is it going to be maybe you could address some of these, or bring us up to date a little bit what you're up to these days, other than you're going to Brussels next week, I guess.
That's going to do a little talking about these
things?
Same issues, but with a group of 50 people from around the world.
You got that "Nearer My God to Me" in your back pocket?
I'm not,
on a chip?
I don't think I can think about that too much.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
One doesn't want to live with that too long.
Yeah, but we do.
But we do.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We may not want to.
But that's part of journalism. Journalism's got to deliver the message that now you've got to think about the unthinkable, and that's very, very scary.
First generations had to do that in real terms.
Absolutely, yes.
Our generation, really, because they couldn't do it in the Second World War.
No.
Yeah.
Something
big's happening.
Maybe not even in our generation. You and I are of an age where we'll probably. I was thinking to myself, I'll probably be long gone. But what about my children and grandchildren?
We'll be able to, as the British say, muddle through. Huh?
We're short term. We're short term.
Short term, as they sit in the military. Yeah. Yeah. Well, how do you see things now? I mean, unless there's something you really want to. You know what I'm saying?
The Internet offers enormous possibilities
It does, doesn't it?
for people to get their messages out. The problem is it doesn't offer much of an opportunity to get your message heard. The people who will benefit most from the Internet are the people who own major information distributions now, because they will use those information distribution systems to plug their stuff on the Internet. So you will discover the things on the Internet that they have. It's very unlikely that you will be able to get your own message discovered.
There's an old saying, it takes money to make money. You know, there's an old saying that there's nothing like having a good bunch of money in order to make more all the time. And that's the problem when the new technologies come. The people who have a stake, and if they're wise and they can relate to the new technology, they have an advantage in terms of being able to try and piggyback on the old technology and that sort of thing. I guess that's the way it has to be.
Oh, it is. And it's really good. Bill Gates does it. And Jeff Bezos does it. You know, there are a lot of guys who got started and couldn't make it, but Gates did, Bezos did.
Some people did. That's like Schumpeter would call creative entrepreneurialism, I think, that sort of thing. But they do. Like you had the film industry or the television industry, the networks. And when the cable came along, it was always, what they call you, chicken noodle network.
And it's for CNN, it was chicken noodle news.
You got a couple million people, maybe, you know. But then you grew. You were able to grow in competition, and yet they're still there. And these older networks stay. Is it the same with the Internet now? People are going to say, well, we got cable audiences, we got the cable universe, and we can measure that. And now you're not going to be able to get an audience because we have the control over the means of distribution and letting people know what's going to be available. And they have that traditional historical advantage, but there's some new things blowing in the wind that might be able to surface. Something really hot hits like CNN hit, and that really took cable into a new pace of competition with the... Do you understand what I'm saying? The evolution of the technology. Does it apply as far as this Internet thing?
It does, but the problem is you don't see too many Ted Turners there. The most successful Internet news source is CNN. They have more than anybody else. I think after them comes MSNBC, MSNBC.
What about Fox? Isn't Fox taking off like band?
On cable.
On cable, I see,
their Internet service they're onto it, but they're not nearly as successful as the MSNBC and CNN
in the Internet.
In the Internet, BBC is on there, New York Times is on. But companies that are established, Time is on with all their magazines, and they plug their Internet sites, and so you go to them.
Right. That's right.
But I can't think of one independent Internet site that really matters.
Where would we put something like C-SPAN? We have this cable system, and they have a pretty good site and so forth of record of a certain sense, particularly with intellectual things, right? Where do they fit in? Brian Lamb.
Well, I think
it's great. I don't know how I could live in a universe without a C-SPAN.
I think they do fine. They do terrific, and I think they're going to be able to set up C-SPAN websites. I think they do.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like C-SPAN.
But they don't deliver news really. They deliver just very special.
It's sort of a grounding thing. But could there be more of that? We had the British Open University. Did you ever follow that much? They had they had Walter Perry started that thing, and Harold Wilson, and they got the intellectual. See, I'm partial to the things intellectual analysis, that sort of thing, and wondering if there's room for that. And it's nice when you can just go and have a little something and click, and if you want more. One day I came...
That's the great thing about the Internet.
Yeah.
That's the great thing.
It's like the Akashic record of the Library of Congress out there. Sometimes you get the sense. It's really staggering from a scholarly point of view.
But the point you just made gives me great hope, because people say there's no foreign news. And the reason there is no foreign news is because the research companies tell the audience, tell the editors and producers there's no market for foreign news. And maybe that's true. Maybe only 10 or 12% of Americans are interested in it. And if you're in a newspaper, you can say, I've only got so much space.
Right.
If you're on television, you only got so much time. The Internet is infinite. You can put all the foreign, even if they're only 7 or 8% are interested, you can have that there, and they can click onto it, and the other people can avoid it. You don't impugn their ability to...
That's right. I think they used to have a thing called narrowcasting. It was something that applied to cable. They were saying you can narrowcast to a particular group and that sort of thing. Is that a valid kind of marketing notion, or where does that fit in?
It doesn't even have to. You're going to broadcast.
Yeah, it is.
But you're going to broadcast everything. So the same guy who goes to your website for news 85% of those people may barely look into foreign news, but 15%, that's their great resource.
Right.
And they can go as deep into it as they want. They
Right.
can read 6 paragraphs or 16 paragraphs or 60 paragraphs.
Well, they start getting those links to the Oxford University and Cambridge, the
Yes.
best scholarly minds in the world, graphics and
Yep.
everything like that.
Yep.
It is unbelievable.
Yep. And so it offers the opportunity
Yeah.
to people who want it
Yeah.
to go find it,
Yeah.
find it. What it doesn't
that's
do
a
is
dream.
teach more people to want to find it.
Uh-huh.
That's what our job is if you're in the general press.
Yeah.
Make people want to go there.
Okay, yeah. Make a link back to that. Is All News then like a headline service to this Akashic record that's being put forth before people? Do you think people are going to go? Some people are connecting their computer to the television set because the broadband is happening. Korea, they got a huge percentage of people with broadband now and so forth, and that they're now connecting their computer to the television, and instead of going for the cable remote control to control what they're watching on the television, they go to their mouse and they go and surf on the internet because there's so much streaming that's starting to happen.
Well,
Do you think that that's a trend that could pick up or not?
well, very soon there's going to be a CompuVision
Yeah.
or a teleputer. It's going to be one device. And I believe that very soon. I'm involved with several companies that are doing that. One of the companies that I work with, and we're about to begin testing to the general public, not general public, specific areas, maybe 100, 200 people, can deliver 3.75 megabits of information over 5 miles on a telephone line, an ordinary telephone line. So all you have to do is put in a $20 modem at the end, and you'll be able. It beats the last mile problem.
Yeah,
it ends the last mile problem
really
totally. And over a mile and a half, we've got 7.5 megabits. So on that, you can send broadcast quality two-way, and even at 3.75 megabits, you can send pictures back. So you can getting pictures from one source and sending it back to them at the same time with smaller pictures. It changes the need. It ends the monopoly of cable for the last mile and makes it possible for all the phone companies who have copper to be in that business.
What do you think about Wi-Fi?
I know that that's happening.
Mr. Powell likes it.
He likes it, but I think that's longer away.
You do,
What we're doing, and we're doing it with major companies now, major PTTs around the world, if it works, would make possible two-way video communication using your ordinary telephone hookup, and would do it within 2 years all over the world.
Over the world?
Yeah,
because the telephone's everywhere, right?
Countries like China, in India, where they don't have an infrastructure. This becomes their answer.
Better than trying to think of wireless or something.
I think so.
You think there's going to be competition? Is the wireless going to be able to give the wired people a real run for the money?
It's very short range. It's much shorter range even than they're mile and a half or so far.
You got cell phones everywhere.
Yes, but cell phones are feeding much less information. They're not feeding 3.75 or 7.5 megabits.
Yeah. But it's a real interesting kind of thing. And you're following those things. You have a lab or something you work with or something?
Well, on another technology, there is a laboratory that I work with. I'm trying to build a much better technology to transmit pictures from all over the world on from a small antenna. And we have something that may be ready within 2 or 3 months. Unfortunately, it was too late for this Gulf thing. But it offers great bandwidth potential, cuts down. And then I've got another technology that I'm developing with another major educational institution, which would be a total breakthrough in all this kind of information.
Can you share it with us?
Oh, not
quite. Can you just give us a little peek?
Well,
can you give us a little hint?
Well, it could enable you to put, say, a 4-inch by 4-inch board on top of a camera, and I call it the Gobi Desert technology. A guy goes out on his camel, gets off in the middle of the Gobi Desert, puts this antenna up, clicks the button on, and anybody in the world can see his pictures.
Oh boy!
And full screen, perfect quality, and that's the ideal.
Yeah.
Let's say we're going to have that.
So you're working on these things, and these technologies are coming apace.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't letting up at all. The nano stuff is coming now.
No, everything's
And you
coming.
follow Kurzweil, Ray Kurzweil much? No, he's really a guy out on the edge of all that. You're doing that, and then you're doing that not only in terms of understanding the technology from a man with a news background.
I don't understand the technology.
Yeah.
I understand the
Understand the implications of the technology.
The application, and I go to people and say, I want this, and can you do it for me?
Okay, and you think that there's a distinction? I mean, you don't have to understand the details of the technology in order to get the pattern in terms of it relates to the application.
I have learned the hard way in terms of dollars.
Don't try to understand all those bits and pieces?
No, I've learned the hard way that what you say is right, that you can wind up losing a lot of money letting technicians...
soft soap you? Or no?
Just letting them try to do things that don't really measure up to what you need at the end.
At the application.
At the application.
The real application. Okay, that's interesting, you know, because these things are... And aren't you wearing a hat in a place where you do some investment banking and that sort of thing?
No,
you don't.
I consult to a magazine banking company when they have properties that come in about television. And I work with them on that. And then there are projects of my own where I work with investment bankers, but they work for me trying to raise money for my project.
I see like that. And these projects have to do with communication by and large, and that sort of, all of them are that, because you got all that in the background.
Yeah, and some of them are content things, and some of them are technology things, but all the technology is built to support content that I hope to provide at some point.
Is that, would they all come into one can you see yourself doing a large overall project that would encompass these kind of things in a new kind of way, or would they be piecemeal? Kurzweil, who I would recommend to you, Kurzweil, he develops a product to where, and then he sells it to a company to market. He's just entrepreneurially developing a new product. But you don't see yourself in the position of starting something like a major portal or something that would be sort of like back to the days of CNN or something, to challenge the old way or something?
Well,
or how do you see that?
Well, I do.
You do? Okay.
I do.
I don't mean to pry.
No, I do. Yeah. I mean, originally I thought it would be a news project using this new technology that would enable us to be different from all the other. CNN was a breakthrough because we used satellites in ways they'd never been used before.
That's right.
We forced the government to Telstar was international. These were the domestic satellites, DOMSAT. DOMSAT, domestic satellites. That was RCA and Western Union and later AT&T. And we used them to gather news and to distribute it in unheard of ways, and everybody had to learn from us.
Such fun,
And that they did. But now I'm looking to do the same thing with the Internet, to find ways to use the Internet and to use these other technologies.
Good.
So and this time I would like to be I'd like to be my own Ted Turner.
You want to be your own Ted Turner?
My own Ted Turner, so that, you don't have to worry about a boss who suddenly decides he doesn't think Crossfire is going to work.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't see how, what you're interested in is absolutely it seems to me, just from a general position of somebody in access and so forth, that kind of thing. I mean, I like the idea of access. I like the ethos and that sort of thing, and everything. But you got an idea that is perhaps the leading responsibility kind of position that a person could take in terms of some of these broader issues that we're talking about. And I wish you all the very best of being able to pull off something that can be really not only in keeping with the best of what the future might offer us and so forth in these really challenging times, but have applicability that have a practical liaison with the realities. I wish you the best in that, and I can't think of anybody who would be better suited to do that than you. You've got a vast experience in these areas, and I wish you all the best on that.
I thank you. I mean, the ultimate
big
dream.
Challenge.
Oh, the ultimate dream is to put all these separate parts together.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at.
I don't want to answer that. That is a dream, but I haven't found the way to do it. I'll take each one at a time, and then if it works together, it'll be a...
What could help them gel, do you think? I mean...
Well, first you got to make one work, and then you got to make the other work. You can't look at the big picture till you can't put on the stool till you've got the legs there.
Is that right?
So we're trying to build them leg by leg, and then once we have it,
How many
becomes
legs
how
does
they
that
deal.
stool have to have, Mr. Schonfeld? I mean, is it a
At- at-
three-legged
at-
stool,
at
a
this-
six-legged
at this
stool?
At this point for me, it's about 4.
4. You want to take off? What do you think they are? This is a major challenge confronting mankind. It'd be good for you to share it because other people might be able to pick up and feed back to you and give you some information to help you go that way. What are the 4 legs that you see of a challenge in terms of setting up a communication capability to take advantage of these emerging new capabilities and so forth?
Well, the
If you
first
will.
is the thing I described, where you're
Yeah.
able to gather news in a new way, so that
Okay.
that'll give people a reason to watch. They'll
That
come to
Goldie
you.
thing would help,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
that's right.
Yeah,
That's that.
yeah.
And then the second, of course, is the thing that I described earlier, where you can deliver it yourself. Just by make a deal with the phone company, you'd have to go to you. The cable companies, they no longer have a monopoly, so you now have an ability to get to the home with your communications.
What about the places that don't have telephone lines, if we're thinking globally?
Well, there you make
Wireless?
the best deal there, but perhaps wireless. But I'm working now with another company, which is the third leg on the stool.
All right, what'd that third leg be?
Well, there they take ordinary video
Yeah.
and they transmit it almost live over ordinary IP,
Really?
yeah, internet proprietary lines, and so that you can take it anywhere. And then if you have a computer, you just can get it on your computer.
Yeah, the computer's linking up with the traditional. I
yeah.
mean, the computer's linking up with the television.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and that may take longer because the pictures aren't that, or can't be that large yet, but they're pretty good. And the company that I do does terrific work. Martha Stewart is a client. You know, if Martha Stewart is a client, it's got to be perfect because she doesn't accept
What was
anything
that
less.
ad? If it's Philco, it's got to be good. What was the ad?
Oh,
If it's Westinghouse, it has to be
yeah,
great or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Anyway, we got a 4th leg there.
Yeah,
It's a
and
4-legged stool. We got to know the 4th
well,
leg.
the 4th
okay?
leg is content, and that's what I'm
Content,
working on it with other people in another network, and that's something that I have great hopes that could happen within a year or so.
Well, the CNN breakthrough and that sort of thing, and the cable breakthrough, and the breakthrough of film from before film, it's breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough, and it's all coming down to a challenge, and it finally comes around to having some sort of a way to maximally engage all these technological extensions of our capability at a very crucial time in the evolution, which might be a transcending time. Back to that little theme where we can blow the whole place up, to one where it might be able to help usher in some sort of a possibility, some zero-sum possibility of the whole system working right for everybody in a way, instead of cherry-picking and only taking care of the ones who are well-to-do, and really have a whole system's responsibility find its way to how this planet could operate. That might be the promise of the time in which we find ourselves.
Well, that's the hope, the ideal, because if we don't do it, all those dissatisfied, the massive dissatisfied will rise up, and if they can't reach us, they will pull us down to them.
That's right. And it may be where the best place to be able to investigate some of the ideas that might be able to be done that, rather than depending upon the political leaders, or even, let's say, the major players of the system, which have great responsibilities, or it might be within a media context where ideas could be brought up, tested. People from some of those responsible positions come in, think of these ideas, and build some at a content base in terms of the basic fundamental ideas we need. It might be in the media where those things would best be discussed in terms of helping the whole process along. And you're right on the cutting edge of all that, and I thank you.
Harold, I thank you, and from your dreams may reality spring.
Well, from our dreams, your dreams. We have the same. I think people of good conscience have the same dream that sort of motivates. I think, and it's a responsibility that we're being called to, this generation and the ones that are following. And I thank you very much for everything you've done throughout your career. It really is an exciting, interesting story. And we didn't get a chance to talk about the book, me and Ted.
Much of this came from me, but I'd like to. One thing that I heard at our reunion.
We got to go fast. We got a computer break coming up. We haven't got a lot of time.
This is very fast. It goes right to what we're saying.
Yes, sir.
Never compare your ideals with the practices of anyone else. Compare your ideals with their ideals and your practices with their practices. And I think that's what we have to do now in everything we're talking about. We can't compare the way we would ideally live with the way the people in Africa hack up each other. We have
Isn't it awful what's going on in the Congo now?
we have
3 million have been hacked up over the last couple of years. It's
we have
terrible.
to we have to look at our ideals, compare them to theirs, and then look at our practices and see how we can improve theirs.
But it is, as the Vedics have been telling us for a long time, it's all one system. We're all part of this. We've been 200,000 years. We've got 6 billion heading for 10, and we are all one system, and everybody's got to be found to be important somehow in that system. Don't you think?
Yes, or at least feel important.
Feel important and having a really important role. It's like, do you know how many cells in the human organism? 100 trillion.